What's up, guys, and welcome back to Moan Inc. If you guys are new here, then hello. My name is Erica, and it is an absolute pleasure to have you joining me today on the channel. Because for today's video, as you can see from the title, I am going to be diving in to uncharted territory. Not only for Moan Inc. as a whole, but also specifically for this playlist when it comes to classics and social media. For a while, I have been really fascinated, looking from the outside in, to the world of reenactments. And of course, I knew exactly who to invite on to talk about this specific side of ancient history and bringing it to a modern audience. So my guest today is none other than Gaius Flavius. Now, for you guys who are probably hearing that going, there's no way that's his name. It isn't. Don't worry, we will let him introduce himself. But for all of you guys on social media, you will know this person by his internet name, Gaius Flavius. Now, he is most popular over on TikTok and Instagram, where his reels get hundreds of thousands of views. His accounts have, multiple hundreds of thousands of followers and cross-platform over millions and millions of impressions. Obviously, reenactments is not only what Gaius Flavius does, and so we will be getting sort of underneath that character that he creates throughout this conversation. So if you guys have ever been as curious as I have about how reenactments come about, how to find groups, how to do any of that sort of stuff, we're going to cover all of that today. But before we can, I'm not going to out your name. I would love for you, though, to introduce yourself, because Gaius Flavius is not your name. So if you could tell us a little bit about who you are and what we should know that is not publicized on social media.
Yeah, Gaius Flavius isn't my real name. My real name is Artur. I am a Swedish resident that has actually I've never studied history or anything. It's just a hobby for me. And so I do. I'm also a Roman reenactor, and I do a lot of comedy videos on Instagram and TikTok. So that's who I am.
Okay, so then if you've never studied it, then how did you get into history?
My father is a history buff. He never studied history either, but it's always read the books about everything from antiquity to the modern wars, etc. And he's very knowledgeable about history in general. Well, not compared to the top academics, of course, but he knows a lot and has an interest, and always whenever we have been out traveling, he's like, there's this thing, you know what happened here, etc., etc. So it always has been a recurring theme in my life that I just get bombarded with history facts. And then it's interesting with history, and a lot of my friends have also been into history, so it has been a topic. So I've never studied history at the university, but I have read a lot of books about the very different topics as well. So,
with that, you said that you were a reenactor.
Yes.
What does that mean for people who don't know what that means?
So this is basically there are different types of reenactments, of course, and you have the living history aspect of it. But it's basically a hobby where you try to recreate parts of our past. Usually from you pick basically a time period and an area, and then you try to recreate this. It can be for educational purposes or just for fun. And then you can also be an asset to museums and academia as well, who wants to try out new things or show things as well. So, but it's basically, so for me, as a Swede, well, the Romans never were here, so we're quite a small group. There are a lot of Viking groups and medieval groups, and of course the Swedish Empire times in the 18th century. A lot of people are recreating that as well. But we focus on the most of military aspects, but we also do some civilian stuff in terms of education and food. Etc. And we and a lot of crafting, of course. We try to make as much of our own stuff as possible.
So then, combining those two answers, the idea that you never studied it, but you had a parent that was really enthusiastic about history, and then you going to do reenactments. what made you choose Roman history, I guess, when it came to the reading, but also you do stuff about ancient Greek history as well on TikTok and social media. So it's not only Rome, but with the reenactments, what made you gravitate there as opposed to the Viking stuff, for example?
I think a lot of actually has to do with the actual mass of information on antiquity. Because Vikings were cool and the Norse mythology and everything, but there is only so much to learn because it was a very limited time period and also a very limited geographic area. Of course, the Vikings were a bit here and there, and you can find the things in Italy and Byzantium and England and whatever. But there is only so much information. The same thing about Sweden during the medieval times was a very formative time period for the nation of Sweden. However, it's just Sweden. And I started really, and when you read about the Greek mythologies, it never ends. There is this thing. But actually the Greeks didn't believe this thing, and the Etruscans had this myth. Blah blah blah. So you always find more information, and the same thing with the history. It's for such a long period of time, and also the legacy of Rome lives on in many ways, also far into the medieval times. So you can kind of read about antiquity, but it never ends. Like, I will never have time to read all the books written on the topic. So it's kind of I haven't read all the Viking books or all the Swedish medieval books, of course, but it's just there's so much more information, and it's available in so many different mediums as well. And I think that's also an important part with the exposure. So yeah, I read Asterix as a kid. Well, the Romans there are the evil ones, of course, but it's still a good comic. I watched a Gladiator movie. It came out when I was still pretty young, which I loved, of course. And you have like the Rome Total War games. I played them a lot. And then you have some, and my father showed me the Ben-Hur movie with the old one, and I thought, oh, this
Classic.
is very cool, yeah, very cool. And I almost fell asleep like twice because it's so long, but I still love them. So it's always like this cultural exposure to the Roman Empire and antiquity, and then you had like the 300 movie that came out, and the God of War video games. So it's a constant reminder all the time, both from my interest in history, but also what actually is delivered into my life through media.
Absolutely. And when it comes to like getting involved in reenactments, like how did you then make that jump? Like how do you actually go about finding people that do this, and then finding this now whole world of, like you were saying, there's Viking reenactments and lots of others. So how did you stumble into that?
It actually took a while to actually get into the reenactment, because I played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons and similar role-playing games when I was younger. And we had this, it would be cool to make something like more Greek or antiquity themed stuff. And there is like a supplement for that as well that has like a world that is set more based on Greek mythology as well. But we didn't use that back then. I found that later. So we were trying to, like, some of my friends, this wasn't my main role-playing group, but we tried to like build somewhat of a world around that. And then I started LARPing as well for a while. But there were no like Greek or Roman themed LARPs. It was just like standard medieval fantasy and the Vikings and some post-apocalyptic things. So I actually hosted a gladiator themed LARP. This was like 8 years ago. It was a very small LARP, not a lot of attendees. I think we were like 35 or 40 people at most.
That's still great.
Yeah, it was amazing, and everyone enjoyed it so much. Then the pandemic hit, I had to stop that project, and it kind of never reawakened again, because I started looking into reenactment as the next step, because I've been looking for a reenactment group specifically because a lot of my friends were doing medieval reenactment, and I want to do Roman stuff, but the closest group I could find, they were like in Germany. I'm like, yeah, I can't really go to Germany for events. And then there was a group in Denmark. Well, yeah, Denmark, and then Denmark is quite far as well, even though it's a neighboring country, of course. But then it turns out they had some Swedish members. So I got in touch with them in 2019. and then I joined them. So, but they were hard to find because they were like 5 people. Sweden is a small country; it's only 10 million inhabitants. But so we managed to find those 5 people doing it and enjoy them. And I got a lot of my friends involved as well. So the group is now 3 times as big as when I joined it. So it's slowly growing.
No way. Wait, so how
Yeah.
do you then go about also recruiting other people? If you start off with 5 of you that are like, yeah, this is really cool, is there like a Facebook group that you join, or like how do you find more members?
Recruitment is very hard because reenactment, especially if you're doing military reenactment, it is a hobby that has a like you have to spend some money to get all the gear. And especially if you want the good stuff, like you can't just go on eBay. Oh, I buy these like masquerade helmets made in Afghanistan for like 70 euros or whatever, and that's not enough. So you kind of have to spend some money, and also it's the armor. Now, of course, the Roman legionary outfit is a lot cheaper than a 13th or 14th, 15th century full plate armor, of course, but it's still quite a heavy investment. So you kind of need people that can make these investments. And they also have to be dedicated, because this is a hobby that has a lot of, you kind of have to know a little bit about everything. You need to be able to like perform these shows. Walking around in armor on a hot summer day is not necessary. So you have to be like physically capable. You have to have an interest in history and a general knowledge of the Roman Empire in this case. Sorry. And you also like have some crafting experience to make some stuff, or even more money to pay other people to do it for you. So it's a bit of the threshold is quite high to actually get into it, and it takes a lot of dedication and time. So it's not for everyone. It's not like I also play a lot of computer games. I get home, I start on my computer, I double click on an icon, and then I'm in. So this is, and you have to go, and also Sweden is a big country with few events, and we also go to some international events. So it's a lot of preparation, a lot of time. So and I try to tell people this because I want them to know that this is going to be a lot of hard work, and it's not for everyone. But the ones I now have recruited among my friends and acquaintances, they are really in for it, and they are all of them are assets to the group with their different skills and things. So it's we have a very good thing going here in Sweden, although we don't have any. We're a small group and we don't really have any Roman legacy in that sense, like Germany and Spain, England as well has.
Okay, I have like a million questions after
Yes.
that, but let's start with talking about the gear. You say it's expensive, so where do you actually then get it from? Is it a case of you can like, are there people that sell it already made, or do you have to order it specially? Like, how does that work? Because there are lots of pieces to this.
Yeah, of course. So and for me, it's very different. So for example, my spear that I use is made by my friend who is a blacksmith.
Wow.
The tunic I sewed myself. I didn't weave it myself though, but that might be a future project. And then I have like my chainmail is made in India by artisans there. So it's very different sourcing, and I have like some jewelry I wear. They are made in by a guy in Switzerland, for example. It's so it's you need to kind of find the people who do the best things or the most affordable things while still keeping a certain level of quality. So, but I also want to learn how to do more things myself, improve my my leather craft, for example, and smithing skills. But it takes a long time to learn, and of course, the legionaries themselves wouldn't know all the skills. They might be good at like one thing. Okay, so you're the guys who are good at mending tunics. Here, mend my tunic and 3 other guys' tunic, and we'll bring you the bread in the morning because you suck at baking bread. So it's kind of, you have to make sorry, you kind of have to make it that way in the reenactment group as well, that you develop different skills, and also of course looking at what people or producing or different materials as well.
That is so cool. I did not expect it to be. The only way to describe it is so crafty. Like, it sounds very like, oh god, it's obviously not the same thing, but like the way that cosplayers make everything that they can up until a certain threshold, like there's a level of artistry to it that I didn't realize.
Of course, but some groups, they usually, like, it's also different from reenactor to reenactor. So my blacksmith friend, for example, he's very talented in crafts overall. So he tries to really make as much as he can by himself, even to the level of dyeing his fabrics in a traditional way to get like really the correct color in his clothing. And he does all the leather work himself. And of course, he's a blacksmith, so he makes his weapon, and he even made his own helmet. So he's on an entirely different level.
Whoa, that's insane.
Yeah.
So, okay, let's go to one of the other million questions that I have. So we go from costuming. Let's go to then what you do when you guys meet up. Let's go there. So when you're saying you're preparing for things, what do you do when you guys meet up? How often do you guys meet up, and what does that look like?
So it really depends also on the events, but sometimes we might do just an event by ourselves. We might go for a march. We say we walk this distance. We bring the gear that are Roman, because they after the time of the Marian reforms, of course, they carried a lot of equipments themselves. So we kind of load up and we walk a certain distance just to get the feel of how it was. We can have trainings for upcoming events where we just meet up and have a good time and train the formations together. And then sometimes we might be invited by a museum to be there for a weekend, and the visitors also get to see the Romans in action. And we can talk about the Scandinavian connections to Rome, because there are a lot of them. Even though the Romans were never here, you have trade and coins and possibly auxiliaries or people fighting for the Romans as well. So there is a lot of connections to be made in that way. So those are like the typical, and then we can have crafting hangouts. We just gather a bunch of people and we sit and watch a TV show and sew together, or help each other out with, someone, okay, this guy is good at leather crafts. He's going to show us how to repair our belts in the best way, or we just mend our tunics together. Like, there can be a meetup like that as well.
So then when you're talking about doing like walks, for example, and holding all of the equipment, like that's heavy. So what else are you having to do on the side to prepare for those things? Like, do you guys have to go to the gym like all the time to make sure that your cardio and that your muscles are up?
No, I go to the gym from time to time, but it helps. But we are, even though our members that do not go to the gym every week, they can still like maintain the pressure for a while. The problem is if we would be out in the field for a month and march 20 miles every day, even like our most athletic members would struggle with that. But we don't do that, of course, because we are not full-time Roman legionaries. So we just do this for a day or a weekend. But it can be a physical stress as well. So you kind of have to, like, you don't have to be like a professional fitness influencer to be able to pull this off. But being used to taking long walks, carrying a load, and exercising your core definitely helps.
So then what has doing this taught you, I guess, about ancient Rome that the books couldn't have taught you?
I wouldn't say that I learn as much in that sense. It's more confirming what you read. Oh, yeah, this actually works. Or, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Because it's like, oh, the Romans would carry their stuff on their backs, and like, oh yeah, isn't that heavy? And then when you actually try it and try to load it in a way and securing the shield in a good way and carrying some loads that's like dispersing the load, it actually works quite well. And it's heavy, of course, but you can walk quite far without too much of a load. So it's like, okay, yeah, it works. And when you look at this shield is a bit heavy, Is it really if a group has very heavy shields and you look at the originals and okay, yeah, this should actually be like half the weight, and then you make a shield that is lighter and you're like, yeah, okay, yeah, this actually works because you use the coverage in this way, etc. So it becomes more of an experimental archaeology in a sense. But I wouldn't say I make any discoveries that would be of benefit to the academia.
Well, of course
Maybe
not,
I
but I
can
think
help.
that you're offering so much though, in the sense of like, I read things and
Yeah,
I'm like, oh, okay, that sounds a bit weird. But then you can say, well, like you just said, like, no, this
yeah.
makes sense because of X, Y, and Z. And that's something that a bookworm like me isn't going to get out of the work.
I think reenactment groups in that sense can be a good help in terms of trying and testing theories that comes from the academia or archaeology in general. Now, of course, they're very different fields, and like the academy can be hard to work with sometimes. And since reenactors do this in their free time, they might not like be readily available whenever. But I think there is a lot, and I know there is cooperation between archaeologists and historians and reenactments groups that sometimes test out things together. But I think it could be done more to really see what it could have been like, because of course the reenactors have a very specialized interest, so they might be more read up on a very specific part of Roman history that the archaeologist or the academy in general can't really grasp because they haven't really went out there and touched it, so to speak. Then I also think a lot of reenactors overestimate their knowledge about the Roman Empire because it's limited to such a very narrow and niche field. So you kind of have that sentiment about, yeah, they're sitting in their rooms in their ivory towers and just they don't understand. But it's just that you have different types of knowledges, and I think with more cooperation you could bridge that gap a lot better.
I couldn't agree with that more. I think that's such a good point. So when you guys then go out and do these reenactments, how do you decide what to reenact? Is that like a group decision or do you like vote on it?
Yeah, we have a very democratic process, at least in our group. But Sweden is very good at that in general. A bit too good sometimes, because sometimes you need group coherency, and the everyone has to agree, and all levels. Flat, what is it, like a flat leadership model? But usually we kind of, first of all, sometimes we get invites to do things. So, for example, one of our biggest events is an old fort, or a rebuilt fort from the Iron Age on one of the islands outside the Swedish coast, who has been inhabited by people both during at the end of the Roman Iron Age and also during medieval times. So they say, okay, can you come here for 3 days and just show some things and show your stuff and talk to the visitors? And we say, yeah, then we do that. Then of course we have to plan within that what we do, but usually we just do stuff that we usually do. But then we always try to discuss at our annual meetings, or we have sometimes we just have group meetings to discuss what we want to do, or things. No, sadly, those are not always very well attended. So in the end, it's not everyone is a part of the decision making, but that's their own choice rather than. But I know a lot of other groups are more hierarchical, but that's, I think, the more of a cultural thing. For example, Germany is a more hierarchical country than England as well, than Sweden, for example. But we are always having discussions and asking, what do we want to do, or what could we do? Do we want to try something new? Do we want to do more of this thing? So it's usually a group decision in our case if we don't get invited specifically to do a certain thing.
So with all of that in mind then, what brings you to social media? Like, how do you go from that to then saying, oh, what about if I upload, I mean, various different types of videos? You know, you have some which are from your reenactments, then there are some which is just kind of, you know, like the text-based stuff, which is like, here's a fun fact kind of a thing. So what made you set up those social media profiles?
So, as I mentioned earlier, we are a very small group, and it's not, like there is no legacy of Roman reenactment in Sweden either. It has like there was like a group 15 years ago or something, or 20 years ago, but never got in touch with any of those members, or and it was a long time ago. So I was thinking I could use my social media as a shopping. Do you call it a shopping window? It's basically for reenactment, just to show that like we are here. This is what we do, so that there also an archive for what we do, and people can see that we have some activity. And it's also a good way to document what we do, to have that available. And even if, and this also happened a lot in the beginning, there would be someone from Germany who stumbled up on my post. Oh, do you know any groups in Germany that I can join? And you would like Google, and okay, yeah, here are 3 groups maybe in your area that you could join. So I think I might have recruited a couple members to other groups more than I have to my own sometimes, because of the visibility I get. So it's, and I had, now this was 3 years ago when I started this, and it slowly grew, and I'm like, oh yeah, this now I have more followers than on my private profile now, and I get these posts generate a lot of likes. And when I benchmarked against other Roman reenactors, like I was closing in on them followers wise. I mean, yeah, I'm gonna keep this up because this apparently works. And we also had a guy in our group he's a very good photographer, so we could get some good photos, and he thought it was fun as well. So we could like really create this shopping window for the hobby in a sense, and get more people involved. And actually, some people have found our group through my social media or one of the other members' social media. So it has been and also it even if we kind of tell them, oh yeah, we do this thing, you can check our Instagram and like, oh yeah, this looks so cool, I want to do this. So it really helps in recruitment. So that was the plan from the beginning. Then I kind of started to look at reels and do more comedy stuff, because when I did some fun things, even like for the normal photos, it's really people enjoyed the comedy, because a lot of reenactors are, I wouldn't say that they're full of themselves, well, some are, and that like they take their hobby very seriously. Not everyone, of course, and there are some other groups who do a lot of comedy as well. But it was a very much of a change from what you would see being displayed. And then when I tried the reels, it really started to kick off. So, and that has been my most successful media, like just doing Instagram reels.
Did you ever anticipate that it would get so big and that
No.
the videos would get so popular?
No, I got like this, it was like 2 weeks ago, I got this memory from was it from Facebook or Instagram, that I had posted like, wow, I have 10,000 followers. And I was thinking back, and I remember how proud I was, like boys, we made it. It's and I was so, because I've never had any such success I've had some good like successful social media projects within their niche, but never on this level. And I remember like I was so proud, and I tried to explain to my father how big this was, and he was like, yeah, this is very good. Like, yeah, it's very, and he liked some of the videos as well, so it felt really good. And also I passed my girlfriend in number of Instagram followers, which was when we started dating, when we started dating, she had a double amount of my followers. So it was no, it's more of a fun thing. But then it just grew from there. So, but it was and this also with the men thinking about the Roman Empire trend I've kind of had to detach from it for a while, because it gets overwhelming when your phone is like you get hundreds of notifications every hour. Like you have to turn it off.
And how has that been like with that shift? Like you mentioned your phone constantly exploding, and I assume that happens frequently whenever you post because your videos just go crazy. So what is that like then for you as somebody who wasn't on social media, did this for reenactment purposes, and then all of a sudden you're getting all this attention? Like was that really jarring? Like was it a really weird experience to suddenly have all these people?
I've been very good at detaching from it, I think, because it's not me, it's my
Mm.
character, basically, who gets the attention. And I've also I've worked with social media before, like not as a content creator myself, but like community management and making content for social media. But it's now it's personal, like it's me they want, in a sense. But I realized quite early on that I can't read all the comments. I can't reply to all the messages. And I have a lot to do at work some weeks. And I have a family and I have a friends and I have a girlfriend and other hobbies as well. And things that takes time. So I really kind of had to keep it on a manageable level, and that was very hard at first because I kind of want to read all the comments and I want to reply to all the messages, and I still try to do that when there is like a period. For example, this week I haven't got very much interactions, so now I've taken my time to. I don't have time to reply to everything, and sometimes I forgot and I don't read everything, but it's manageable in a sense. But for months when when I reach 10 million accounts, which has happened 2 times this year, it's just like you can't.
Mm.
It doesn't matter how much I want to, because I don't, even if I was working with this full time, I wouldn't have time to do it either. It's just so you have to accept that I have limits.
And how do you do that in like a healthy way? Because it sounds like you've done this in such a healthy, like with a healthy mindset, even. So is that by like silencing your phone? Like I'm just thinking of people who are listening to this that might, maybe they're not totally on your level, but they might just be experiencing what it is like to be viral. And they might not know, like, how do I put in those healthy boundaries between me and this profile in order to ensure, the day job gets dealt with and the family
Yeah.
and the friends and all of that.
One thing that has been very helpful for me, going back to even the Romans, is like the more of a Stoic philosophy, in the sense that like some things are just out of my control. I can't really control what people write or what people say, or what, like, I can make content that is more likely to go viral, but in the end I can't control what goes viral, or um so it's just like surrendering to your to your actual inability to control a situation, I think is very good, and focus on the things that you can control, which is your everyday life, your work, your family, friends, your girlfriend, your other hobbies. um so it's and so I've really been trying to detach from the fact. And I also, I know a lot of people, okay, they're having some success, let's try this full time, and just they let go of a lot of other things to just focus. And some people are very successful and some people do not have that success. And I have never really had the goal to become a full-time content creator. If it happens, it happens, and I'm not gonna fight it if those possibilities come my way. But I will I'll try to keep my work and do all the other things in my life that I think is fun, and just not dive down too much into this. And on the grand scope of things, like even if I'm like one of the biggest creators in my niche, on a global level, my account isn't actually that big compared to the big names in social media. So I kind of like I'm a big fish in a small pond, but if I was in the sea, literally no one would care about me. So it's, I think, just realizing detaching from yeah, I don't know, from other people and other people's view on your content, and just focusing on your life in general, and put the energy into your content when you feel that you are, or that you want to do it, or when you have good ideas, and not pressure yourself too much, because then you're gonna just get burned out. Or I would, at least. Maybe other people work differently, of course.
I think that's a really good piece of advice for people who are listening. But I want to pick up on something that you said there, which is, this whole idea of social media not necessarily being full time and also not being your goal. And I've spoken to a lot of other social media people who've come on the channel, and I like to kind of pick into your heads a little bit, if you don't mind. So what is your goal? Like, not looking at social media, just looking at your life. Like, do you have like a goal that exists obviously outside of work and all of this, of like something you've always wanted to do? And if so, like, what is that?
I kind of hit all my goals already.
Oh, really? Oh,
It's
look at
like,
you.
no, but it's, so we had this I've done it all. I have nothing left to prove. And like within my niche, at least, like you have an Instagram account with over 100,000 followers. It's like, I could never imagine, like, I would, if you had asked me 2 years ago and someone said, yeah, in a year you're gonna hit like 10,000 followers, I would have been, no way, like that's never gonna happen. Like, no, there's not enough people who would enjoy what I do. And in the same thing that I have, having like also been invited as a person to, like, in the reenactment hobby, like being recognized at events, like, oh yeah, you're that guy, and they always recognize me for different things because they have their favorite reel or something. So it's like all those things that I thought would be so cool if that happened. When I started the social media account, get more followers, get recognition, that people will recognize me at events, because I'm a bit shy sometimes. So if people approach me, that's good, because yeah, then I have someone to talk to. So I kind of already hit all the goals I had when I started the account by far. And I haven't really had time to figure out, like, do I have other goals? I just want to live my regular life, in a sense, and things are going quite well in my everyday life. So it's I haven't really thought about what would be the next step, because it's a lot of the development, of course, have happened over the last year. So it have kind of grew a lot faster than I had ever anticipated. So I haven't really formed a plan for the future, or haven't set any new goals in that sense. So I don't know.
So do you want to continue doing like reenactment then? Do you see that as being always like a part of your life, or is this just something that's really fun at the moment that you're really enjoying?
I really enjoy the hobby, because it is a hobby that is a combination of other things I enjoy. So for example, I love reading about history. So that's one box checked. I enjoy the crafting, another box checked. I like doing these. I was in the, what do you call them, Boy Scouts as well as a kid. So being out in the nature and hanging around with the friends with similar interests. So yeah, that's another box checked. And I enjoy doing social media as well. So if I can combine this, it's like all my other hobbies combined into one hobby. So unless like something happens or I get fully burned out, I plan on continuing this hobby for a while. And it's also a hobby you can do as an older person and as a younger person as well. You can technically do it together with your family if they have the interest, of course. So it's a good hobby that you can do in many different ways as well, and shift your focus. If I get bored with the military stuff, maybe I recreate some like a religious, start to recreating religious ceremonies, show how that works, or learn, get really good at a certain craft to show that as well, and I can still do that within the limits of the hobby, for example.
So just thinking about how you said that you're shy as a person. And obviously, like, you've come onto social media, like you said, you have a big following, you then get recognized at events. What would you say like was a really big positive about that social aspect of social media and of reenactments that's kind of brought you from a shy person's perspective? Because like I'm not shy, for example, and I would imagine that would be great because I'd be like instantly I have friends everywhere that I go. I'm the type of person that would like if I saw you in person, I would like run up to you and be like, hi, I know you, like, oh my God, so excited to meet you. Now we're friends. So from your perspective, what's the positive in that?
Yeah, I don't necessarily like dislike people, or I don't dislike being social, but I'm very bad at taking the first step because I get a bit anxious always. For example, if I recognize someone, I'm like, is this really this guy? Is it weird if I go up to this person, oh, you're this YouTuber? And he or she would be like, no, who are you? Like I'm a bit of I think I'm more anxious than I'm actually shy. In that sense, I don't want to make a fool of myself or inconvenience other people. I think I don't want to inconvenience other people is the thing. It's more of a Swedish mindset. But I think the best thing is that I've gotten into contact with so many people from all over the world that has different, like all of them are of course interested in what I do in terms of reenactment or Roman history, but they are interested in so many different aspects. So there can be like an archaeologist that was like, we just found these things when we were digging in Italy. I'm gonna send you some pictures. We had such a good time, and these things are so cool. I'm like, oh yeah, it's so interesting. Thank you I really appreciate it. And then there could be some like a historian or a history student from America. I was like, oh yeah, we read this text, and they're talking about this crazy guy who's named Gaius. Is that you? So you always get so many different input and people from all over the world sending me memes and just facts and recommending other accounts, and also reenactors who are a lot more experienced and knowledgeable than me, who's sending me tips and ideas and inviting me to their events. I don't really have time to attend them, but I'm very happy for the invitations, and it's just like I feel like I'm welcome in the community, and I learn so much. And there's just I have like people have sent me things to read about. I have a long list of things I should look up. So, I don't always have time to do it. But it's just, yeah, I get access to so many different interesting persons or people and their skills and their ideas. So it's really, yeah, I think that's the thing I appreciated the most. Like knowing that there are people who can teach me things out there, who wants to teach me things.
When it comes to social media, then, do you have a formula? Like, I'm just thinking for people who are listening to this, because I have lots of people who want to be big in the history social media space, who watch these videos, and people who comment, they're like, oh, I love this account, and like, I want to be like them or whatever. And a question I tend to go for with everybody is, what's your, like, if you have a formula that you can share that like, well, this is kind of foolproof even for you. And obviously it's going to be different for other people, but like something that hits with your audience every time.
Well, I haven't found that form. I have some things that works sometimes, but it's also hard because I think also you have to look like, and also in terms of content, sometimes you have to kill your darlings, because I know a lot of people, and this is something I have gotten criticism for, that my content is too basic and it's not deep enough sometimes. And I'm just like, yeah, of course, if you make jokes about Caesar, people are gonna know it. So try to make jokes about like Lucius Calpurnius Piso instead. And I'm like, that joke that you're suggesting is amazing. However, very few people know about Lucius Calpurnius Piso.
I was going to say that, like, you're catering to this audience.
Yeah, exactly. And so they don't, and especially people who are into the hobby, they don't understand that, even though, and which is also shown by the all men think about the Roman Empire trend, that there is a people know about antiquity, but they might only know Caesar and Cleopatra and Socrates and like the Teutoburg Forest massacre. Like even then you're getting a bit too deep. They might know about Alexander the Great and stuff. So you kind of, if you want to reach a global audience consisting of more than 10,000 people, you kind of have to like move away from your own bubble and like what do people actually know? Oh, did they know that there was some funny business going on between Caesar and Cleopatra? Yeah, people are kind of aware of that. So usually those memes perform quite well. Or I had a recent one with but I have some of these like more really, they are super basic, like you don't need a lot of knowledge, but I think keeping it simple in that way is really what you have to start looking at. Like, and if you only want a niche audience, then it's fine to be very specific. And sometimes the specificity, or what's the correct word would be, could be a part of the meme, because you just write a long text. So this person did this on this date in this province with this thing, blah 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 blah, and it's just a long text, and then it's just an image of a goat like falling down, and it's like okay, this guy actually died when he was about to do this, because I found that out when I Wikipedia'd this random guy from antiquity. So people will think that's fun because it's so specific in a way. So, and then when they get the joke, it's fun because, so those can work as well, but generally just keep it simple. But then if you want to do educational content as well, and even if you want to mix comedy into it, like you can't make only Caesar content, even though that's going to be very available for people. And very like concrete in that sense, and very simple. Then you will have just a Caesar fanboy account, and antiquity is so much more than Caesar, of course. So you kind of have to, I don't know. I try to keep it simple for some things, and those usually perform very well. But as soon as I go more specific, I can still get a lot of fun comments and a lot of DMs appreciating the comment, but it's not gonna hit like 100,000 accounts reached. So it's and it's a balance, because I want to be educational and make specific comedy as well. It's really hard to find that balance properly. But keeping it simple is my advice if you want to reach more people.
So I'm just aware that we've been talking for quite a while, so we should start winding this down a little bit. So I guess my penultimate question would be, with all of this in mind, with everything that we've spoken about throughout this interview and with people getting to know you, it sounds like there's a lot going on all the time, which is obviously good. Like, you keep yourself busy, you have your regular job and all of this. So how do you balance all of that? Like, how do you balance that in a day? Like, I feel like a lot of people are going to hear that and be quite overwhelmed that you manage to literally just do all of this and seem to manage it so well and have such a stoic mindset about it. So what's some advice that you could give to people about balancing their day, balancing their regular life, and not having to drop everything to, do one or the other?
Sometimes I don't balance it very well. And it's I really try to balance it as much as I can and prioritize the things, as I said before, like prioritize the things that are within my control. But I also, and this is something, for example, my girlfriend is very critical of when I pick up my phone at the dinner table, because, I got a lot of notification. Is there something big going on? She's like, put down the phone. We're having a nice dinner together. And I'm like, yeah, you're correct. You're absolutely correct. I'm sorry. And sometimes, I sit up at night and okay, I'm going to go to sleep. And you have had so much to do during the day. So you're just, okay, I got a lot of messages and comments. And then, then you sit and scroll the messages and comments. You're just going to check them. But then 45 minutes later, you realized you haven't fallen asleep yet. And you have an important meeting in the morning. So like, okay, this is dumb. I should have just put down the phone. So it's I think I'm very good at managing it, but I do struggle. So it's I have to keep myself in check. Um, and also the incessant scrolling for inspiration, where I just like do. I can sit for 40 minutes and just scroll TikTok, not because I like really care what's on there, but I want to find this good inspiration and I don't find it. So that's like technically 40 minutes wasted of my life. But I also try to be very good at when I'm at the event, I take the photos I need, we do some videos, and I can reuse them. And I've been very good at reusing old content and looking through older photos. What can I reuse? And also the fact that I don't have to dress up in polished armor for every shoot. Sometimes I can just throw on a blanket and pretend to be a Greek philosopher in front of a green screen. That will take me 10 minutes instead of like draping it properly with a thin wool and stuff, and just do some makeup for better lighting, etc. So I kind of stopped doing all the things that takes time and focus. What is it I actually want to tell, or what is it I actually want to do? So really scraping off the things at the end to really get to the center and keep it simple in that sense, which have saved me a lot of time. So making a 10-second reel, now it doesn't take 10 seconds, of course, but I can do it after dinner when I get home from work, even if I'm tired, instead of it taking 1 hour with preparations and wanting to do it perfectly. So that I'm going for good enough rather than perfect is something that had really saved me a lot of time.
And in saving a lot of time, you then have your content ideas. You mentioned, scrolling, doom scrolling,
Yeah,
which is exactly what that is.
Yeah.
So how then, as like a last note, I guess it's like the last little thing people can take away from this video is, how do you manage to be so concise in your content ideas? Like, where did those come from? Is it sort of a combination of a lot of things that help you come up with ideas? And do you have like a batch of ideas that then you come up with so you can just kind of pound out the filming and have X amount of videos saved up?
It really depends on my productivity and stress level and other workload. So there can be times where I note down good ideas, or I save like trending sounds, or this sound I could make something of. And then sometimes I don't come to do them at all. But there is also things where since I do a lot of reading, people think I just do the clown content and everything. I'm a joker, which is true, of course. But I do read the sources, and sometimes it's like, okay, I have no ideas. I just take a random page of the 12 Caesars. Like, oh yeah, Nero was doing this crazy thing, according to Suetonius, of course, because you never know. But then, okay, let's make a reel about this. So the inspiration is either, but I think I'm in a very good place in terms of that I have read so much, and my brain kind of like makes a puzzle and like connects the dots by itself when I see something, especially when scrolling TikTok. It kind of, this is a perfect Caesar and Marcus Cicero moment. Let's make this. So, and sometimes I read Wikipedia texts or books, or things I see in movies that were like, okay, well, how did this really go down? Okay, they weren't, when I read the article, they weren't actually in the desert. It was in a field and this happened. So, okay, maybe I can do so. I note things down. So whenever I feel, okay, now I have 2 hours to record and I feel in the mood for recording, like, let's scroll through all my ideas. Can I make one here? So it's really a mix from TikTok trends, reading the actual sources, taking inspiration from media or whatever. So it's just I just look everywhere for content, and sometimes I find it. Sometimes I have to think about it for a long time or combine different things.
I think that's a really nice place to end the video, actually. Thank you so much for joining me today and for offering so much advice. I mean, this has just been packed full of useful information for not only people who either are part of the reenactment space, but who want to get into the reenactment space, but also those starting on social media. So it means a lot that you have been so forthcoming with all of the advice and all of the wisdom that you can offer. And obviously, thank you guys at home for watching the channel, for continuing to support the channel, because it means that I get to dive into conversations like this that I have always wanted to, and I have been so nosy about for the longest time. And it's because you guys continue to support the channel. So for you guys who maybe just met Artur during this conversation, you guys can find all of his links in the description below. So definitely go down there and check it out and give him a follow on whatever your preferred platform is. So thank you guys so much, and we'll be seeing you next time with more videos here on Moan Inc. So I'll see you guys then.